Batman Arkham Asylum. What Iron Man was to the MCU is what Batman Arkham Asylum is to comic book video games. Proof that it didn't have to be half-baked movie tie-ins. That original stories set in their own universes, giving studios their own freedom to tell stories that they want to tell. Arkham Asylum is absolutely timeless in the Batman story it tells, the environment it's set in, the mechanics it uses, and it's a game that has pioneered the future of comic book video games that we get now. I remember being a kid and seeing Arkham Asylum in some PlayStation magazine and just losing my mind, reading every little bit of text over and over and overanalyzing every screenshot. Like we had 6 screenshots that we got of the game. It looks so good. We really hadn't had a Batman game of this quality, well, ever. Well, really even a superhero game of this quality in a long time. Not only was I ingesting every scrap of content from this magazine, but it came with a demo disc. And that's made me absolutely melt and made me feel fucking old. But it gave us that first stealth encounter, and I just replayed this demo over and over again, and I was obsessed. Anyway, I couldn't tell you how many times I've played through this game now, and every single time it makes me appreciate it more and more. And whilst the later Arkham games refined each aspect, Asylum is maybe the most important of them all. I want to start with what makes this one stand out from the others. Its setting. The moment when you first leave the interior of the asylum and you step out onto the island, seeing the pale lit moon lighting the little dreary island up and the bright city lights of Gotham in the background, and then these creaking rusty buildings of the asylum. Perfection. I know people always talk about the Fallout games where you first leave the vault and you see this world out there to explore. This is the definitive comic book version of that. In terms of media outside of comics, we've never really spent a lot of time at Arkham Asylum. One thing that I feel is distinct about Batman is that its locations are also characters. Gotham, the Asylum, the Batcave are as important to Batman as a Robin or an Alfred. They impact his mental state, his approach. I mean, straight from the off in this game, Batman roaring through the streets of Gotham in the Batmobile with Joker cuffed up, flying past the Arkham gates. It just immediately sets the tone in the best way possible, highlighting he knows something off. The game just terrifically establishes this Arkham world. Rocksteady nailed every single location throughout their trilogy, and WB did with their iteration in Origins. This game is about Batman being trapped at the asylum as a result of Joker's plans. But it plays as them being trapped with you. It's your playground, you never really feel out of control, and I think that's intentional. And whilst the setting of the asylum is timeless, there are aspects that now, going back to feel a little bit more on the rough side, but this was Rocksteady's first crack. Speaking of which, this was the first iteration of free flow combat. People look at the Arkham games as action-adventure, and rightly so, but to me they're also rhythm games. City, Origins and Night obviously went on to get better and better, but when this first came out it was revolutionary. The weight and impact of each hit on the enemy, the brutality of the combo finishes and the snappiness of the counters. When you get the crit strikes going and you're in free flow, it never gets old. It's something that Insomniac have iterated on for the Spider-Man games, and whilst they definitely do some things better, I still think the Arkham games just have that little bit more weight, that little bit more satisfying feedback. Asylum going back now, it does feel a little sluggish in terms of animation speed. You can't quite zip from enemy to enemy, but it still holds up. My toxic video game trait is old game equals old. I really have a tough time playing older video games, but Asylum, it still has that modern feel that as soon as I got into that first encounter, it feels like going home. Now, whilst free flow combat was just incredible for its time, this is a Batman game. It's about striking from the shadows, and the old cliche, it makes you feel like Batman. But they nailed it. I remember my jaw just dropping the first time I did an inverted takedown and just being like, wow. Now by modern standards, you take this thing for granted now, but for its time, the stealth mechanics were out of this world. And whilst they never made the challenge feel better in its melee combat with Titans, or them bloody annoying screaming radical inmates, the way Rocksteady took environments that you'd used before for stealth sections, then changed them up to create a fair challenge was just brilliant. Where once you could grapple to gargoyles, they're now planted with mines, or where you could hide around a knocked out thug, The collar now alerts everyone else to where you took them out. A really fun way to change the sandbox up and make you rethink your approach in each setting. Of course, on top of that, the natural reaction of enemies was way ahead of its time. You could take out a room of guards that they never know you're there. But then when they do, the way that the fear would change their reactions when they know you're there is still better than most modern games. Guards would double up together or constantly shift direction to check all angles. It was brilliant. This is a 2009 game. Meanwhile, we've still got Assassin's Creed Mirage letting you whistle over 100 guards to a bush and take them out one by one. The Predator system was ahead of its time, and it's still a gold standard for me of what a stealth system should look like in modern video games. The game fundamentally is a Metroidvania. As you gather and unlock more of Batman's gadgets, you can access places in the asylum that you could only previously look at. Whether that be blowing up walls, whether that be pulling structures down, or ziplining across the line launcher. It works, because it's Batman. He always has something ready for the task. He always has something that he may need later on. This guy even has a secret Batcave tucked away on the island. Good old prep time, eh? But going back to the asylum for one moment, the spirit of Amadeus Arkham scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. I was fascinated by whom this was, what that story was. It really fit the tone and mystery of the asylum. And that's just like another exceptional aspect of this game, is its world building. I spoke about Batman and the characters, but what's key to a good Batman is good Batman villains. A decent chunk of the Rogues Gallery showed up in Asylum. But what this game, and I think Rocksteady don't get enough credit for, is the Batman and wider DC world building that they do. Sure, you can just rattle through the main campaign if you want to, and experience the story. But through the Riddler trophies, puzzles, and interview tapes, this game just builds up so much of who this Batman is, what he's been through, what his Rogue Gallery looks like, and while some of it doesn't like quite chronologically add up, i.e. like Hush, showing up for a moment for a guy who hasn't appeared in the series yet, it's mind-blowing how much context there is for this Batman universe. Tells for Two-Face, Mr. Freeze, references to Penguin with his umbrella, Catwoman's goggles, Thomas Elliot being on the board, just amazing world building. And then for those that do show up, they're all done brilliant justice in both the character designs and what they bring to the story. Zaz being absolutely off his tits. Croc's brute force design, Bane's pure rage, Ivy's lust, and then Joker's insanity. And whilst I think Asylum does have the weakest boss battles of the 4 Arkham entries, it no doubt has some of the best moments. Entering Croc's lair with the sound mechanics, and it goes from like an action adventure to attempting like mild horror mechanics. It goes back to what I said. Whilst you're meant to be trapped in Croc's lair, really, he's the one that's trapped with you. And then man, in terms of Batman content, the Scarecrow sections, the 3 Scarecrow encounters are just phenomenal. The way it taps into Bruce's mind and psychology, how he grieves and feels responsible for his parents' deaths. The responsibility he feels for Jim whilst his daughter works for him. It's just world class from Rocksteady. Not to mention that fake out. I remember thinking a PS3 had just melted, only for Rocksteady to flip it, and then you have Batman being taken into the asylum with Scarecrow and Joker and Harley escorting him in. It was so good. It was brilliantly done. It really was. Of course, the game ends a little anticlimactic with a pretty terrible boss fight against Joker, but it still nails the aspects of Batman. He will never let the Joker win, but he won't kill him. He won't go past that line, despite the multiple opportunities he has in this game. He's willing to do whatever it takes, whether that be autopilot the Batmobile to run Bane into the river, bury Croc 100 feet under, demolish Ivy's plants, or become injected with the Titan formula to save Gordon. And then one more, twat Joker with the explosive gel taped onto his fist. It's kind of nuts to look back on. You can kind of work you through this game in like 5 hours if you want to, and have a belter. Or you can do all the Riddler stuff and take in this Arkham world that has been so lovingly crafted. Its linearity is a thing of the past for most games now, but I'll be honest, I miss these shorter, tighter experiences. Like I say, this was the first entry into the Arkham franchise, and even though by literal date it feels the oldest, clunkiest as a Batman entry into his 80-year-long media, it stands head and shoulders with the rest of them. Rocksteady would figure out how to add natural difficulty to its combat encounters outside the mindless titans charging at you, and certainly refined its boss battles to some of the best maybe ever in video games. Asylum is timeless in terms of what it presents as a Batman story, a Batman setting, and the first time you got to really feel like Batman. An iconic clash between Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, and it was an important moment for comic book superhero games. And whilst I feel they went on to create even greater experiences, Asylum will always be the most important. So, what are your memories of Arkham Asylum? What's your favourite moment? If you're looking for more Arkham content, you're really going to want to hit that subscribe button as we continue the retrospect of the Arkham series on the lead up to Rocksteady's next adventure with Suicide Squad, of course alongside a ton of Suicide Squad already on the channel and everything covered between now and launch and beyond. If you enjoyed this video, drop a bat like, have a terrific day, and I'll catch you in the next one.